Ready? All right, let's go ahead and get started. If you would stand. We've asked tonight Mr. Dennis Jones from the high school to come and, as a retired military person, and give the Pledge of Allegiance. Mark, I'd ask you please to tell us a little bit about his. I don't know how much history he wants known, but let's tell about his history a little bit.
I think that we could probably unload the whole book of Dennis here, and it would be okay, because he's a pretty qualified, pretty handy guy, and he is coming to us after being in the Air Force for 26 plus years, retired as the top sergeant that you could absolutely make. I can't remember all of the words that go with it. And then he came to us in JROTC and worked with us there for 3 years. Retired from that, and then decided that he couldn't stay away from the kids. And so he decided to come back and become an administrator, and is doing a bang-up job keeping Sonia Blankenship in line. We appreciate that. So, Mr. Jones, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, sir. We face the flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you, sir.
Mitch.
We pray. Our Heavenly Father, once again, we're gathered in this meeting. Lord, we ask that you would be with us. God, we ask that you would give us sound mind. God, we ask that you would be with our kids, be with our faculty and staff, be with our parents, be with our whole community during this time of pandemic, during this time of COVID. God, that we know there are difficult times, but we know you're still on the throne. We know that you're still in control. Lord, that you're all-powerful, all-knowing, that you're everywhere. And we thank you for that, and we thank you most of all that you love us. We love you because you did first love us, and we ask you now to be with us and go with us. We ask all these things in your precious holy name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we'll call the meeting to order. First of all, we'll have the approval of the agenda, and we've got a couple of changes.
There are some names that we've added. We continue to cycle through some personnel adjustments, and you have those names on your updated agenda there. Also, we need to talk about a calendar waiver. I became aware that we need to prepare our calendar waiver for the 2022-2023 school year already, and so I've added that to the agenda in an appropriate place for discussion. And then I believe that there's going to be some contract discussion tonight about my contract, and we need to add that in as well. Other than that, we have COVID action. Probably that will be taken or might be taken after discussion time. Those are the only adjustments, Mr. McKinney, that I see we need.
Okay, we have one other. We're going to put public comment if we've got any public comment now before we go into discussions.
And we have that on the original
It's
agenda.
on the original?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, all those in favor of the changes?
So moved.
Agenda
Second.
approval? All right. All in favor by show of hands? All right, so moved. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay. Let's go into discussion items. Mr. Sale.
This evening, one of the key points that I believe that we need to talk about and to hear numbers concerning is the COVID report for Swain County. We've asked Allison Cochran to come and to fill us in on what our numbers look like, and then if you want to have a general discussion, we can.
Hello.
You have in front of you the maps that I usually present. As of today, August 9th, we have 58 current active cases. Since July 29th, we've had 1 additional death and 78 new positives. The second graph shows the breakdown of the number by ages. From 0 to 17, there's been 184 individuals that have been tested COVID positive in Swain County. On the back page is just a line graph about the number of positives reported in Swain County, just to show you since July the 12th, just the increase that we've taken here in Swain County. Current active cases, ages 18 and younger. From 0 to 4, we have 1 case. 5 to 17, we have 5 cases. Ages 18 years, there are 2 cases currently in Swain County. From July 20th to August 9th, we've had 4 cases from 0 to 4, 15 cases from 5 to 17, and 5 cases of 18 years. Below that, we show the breakdown per county in Western North Carolina, the cases over the last 14 days. In Swain County, we've had 72, Graham County 47, Jackson County 192, Clay County 71, Cherokee County 195, Macon County 162, Haywood County 273. And of course, that information came from the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services COVID dashboard. The second information is percent of population that's fully vaccinated, and of course that came from the CDC vaccination website. I did not list that, I'd apologize, but if you just Google that, it comes right up for you. In Swain County, 41.3% of our population has been vaccinated. Close to us is Jackson County at 41.1, Haywood County is 44.7. Everyone else is in the 20 to 30 range. In Swain County, I think approximately 272 individuals ages 12 to 18 have been vaccinated. Do you have any questions on that?
How many of those have had to be hospitalized? Do you have that? Or do you know hospitalization like at Harris?
Amber said we currently have 2 to 3 individuals who are hospitalized at this time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Could you go over, last or 2 weeks ago, we was talking about mask being no mask at school, how that would affect as far as being quarantined.
Yes. And Brandon might could elaborate on this as well. If you're in school and there are no masks at all, anybody within 6 feet is considered a contact and automatically quarantined for anywhere from 7 to 10 days, depending on a negative test. If 2 students are wearing a mask, or if everybody's wearing a mask in the classroom, that social distance is reduced to 3 feet. So anybody within 3 feet is considered a close contact and quarantined. Correct. If both are wearing the mask, they do not have to quarantine.
If both are wearing masks, they do not, whether they're vaccinated or not.
Correct.
Okay.
Brandon, do you want to elaborate on any of that?
It's if 2 students, student A and student B are working together, and then they're inside of 3 feet, and they're consistently wearing masks appropriately. If student A is positive, student B does not have to quarantine unless they get symptoms and test positive later.
Now,
That does not apply to adults. That only is for students.
And I do not believe it applies to sports, unless that has changed.
Sports is.
I don't know about sports. That's not even on the topic. I'm just putting that out there.
We really have no guidance on that from CDC or from the High School Athletic Association or from DHHS about sports at this point.
Yeah.
that's my understanding outside, those rules don't necessarily apply. Is that right, if you're out in the air, open air? I mean, if you got a group of 20 kids outside and they're all running around playing without masks, does that still be the same thing if they caught it, I guess, but it'd be hard to trace it, wouldn't it?
That's a good question. It's still 6 feet if they're unmasked.
Is there a time frame? I know with the novel COVID virus, it was like a 15-minute.
It's still
time.
15 minutes.
Okay, so they have to be around each other for 15 minutes within 6 feet, no mask, in order for both children to be quarantined or a group. Okay,
15 minutes in a 24-hour period.
That's cumulative,
okay,
not consecutive.
okay. All right.
I know, that just adds a wonder caveat right there, doesn't it?
Math.
It's very difficult for a teacher to keep up with that 15 minutes. There's no way to do that.
And I was gonna say, who does that? The teacher
I
does
mean,
that.
realistic, it's hard to do.
Okay.
So it's pretty much automatic if you've been around each other 15 minutes in a day. I mean, that would be
Yes,
more likely
yes.
of a scenario.
Any other questions or thoughts?
I don't want to put you on the spot, but as far as your level of concern for students at this point, or teachers, or anybody in the school system, do you have any thoughts about that?
There is concern. Our cases are going up, sharply increase. I mean, like 2 weeks ago, we had 18 positives. Now we're up to 58. So there is a concern. There is an overall concern with the school system going back in, everybody into the classroom, which I agree with. Please don't misunderstand me. I do agree with that. But I think we need to be cautious because, there are breakthrough cases where people are vaccinated that are still have COVID or the Delta variant and can, transmit to the children. And when you've got that many in a classroom, it's just concerning.
Do you know, just based on the environment you're in with different health directors and such across the state, is there concern that this is still going to increase even more?
Yes.
Consistently going up?
Yes. All of the health directors that I've spoken to are strongly encouraging their school board to follow the CDC and the state guidelines.
I may be using these words wrong, but you had mentioned before, I believe it's the transferability of the Delta variant versus the novel COVID virus. Novel COVID virus was, for every one person infected, it was capable of being transferred or likely to transfer to 2 people.
Correct, and the Delta variance is 1 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
And I noticed some articles about the guidelines from American Academy of Pediatrics. Have you reviewed those?
No, I have not reviewed those.
Any other questions? Thoughts?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Allison. All right. Let's move ahead.
Do you want to move to the board policies now, or do you?
Let's move to board policies, and then we'll come back to
Okay.
this. I think we've got that written in action item.
There were several board policies that I brought to your attention one of the previous meetings, and this would be the second reading for those. I told you at that time that those policies are largely editing changes and nothing of real substance that changes any of the policies or how they work. There are 3 other policies, 6140, 6210, 6220, and 6230, and all of those have to do with food and nutrition and healthy students. The reason I didn't bring them to you already is I wanted both Jennifer Brown, our food and nutrition director, to look at them and to compare them, and I also took them then to Dr. Brandon Sutton, to look at for some other concerns, and both of them brought them back and said that they're in good shape just the way they are. I would recommend that you approve those tonight along with the others, and the way that you can do that is when we move to action, you can waive policy 2420, which is the policy that requires 2 readings, and then you can lump them all together and vote if you choose to. Otherwise, those last 4, we would need to hold until the next meeting. Either way is really irrelevant to me, Mr. McKinney. You just have an option to take care of all of them at one time, if you want to.
Any comment?
Mr. Sal, on the agenda, it said 2450, is it 2420?
Policy 2450 allows for us to waive a policy. 2420 is actually the policy that we would be waiving.
Okay.
Yes.
I didn't see any changes in them, and that's what we're doing.
There really are none. It's just editing. in a lot
This
of
don't
ways.
include the 4,400 attendance.
I'm going to recommend tonight on the attendance 4,400 policy that we put that one to the side for now. We've never really gotten to a point where we have, I would be comfortable saying we've had a good solid first reading because there are so many questions and changes. And the reason I want to move it to the side tonight is with the impact of COVID-19 in our schools, I am concerned with how that's going to affect our parents and our students. And I think that this might not be a good time to put a new policy into effect, and instead we may need to look at an amendment to the current policy that is specifically for COVID-19. And I can provide something for you to look at before our next meeting on that. So I recommend that we put 4,400 aside and bring that back at a different time.
Okay. Anything else?
Not about policies. We can talk about the calendar waiver if you would like to.
All right.
The calendar waiver is allowed for school systems that have had 4, I think I'm saying this correctly, 4 years out of the last 10 where there have been 8 days or more missed due to inclement weather. We, in the past 10 years, have accumulated enough years with 8 days missed or more to qualify for a calendar waiver that allows us to move our start date back 1 week. That's why our students can start next Monday rather than on the 23rd. The state law says that we have to start on the Monday closest to August the 27th. Now, the closest Monday to August the 27th in the following school year, 22-23, is August the 29th. Have you done the math yet? That puts us a week later than we have been in 4 or 5 years. I emailed the people who are in charge of this today, and they said, yes, that is true. With your calendar waiver, you can start on August the 22nd.
No, that's next.
That's next school year. And that is as early as we can start by law. Did that
Now-
make sense to you?
Am I correct that there were some exceptions made to several districts in the state to allow a school board to set that calendar without anything?
Now, I will be honest with you, Mr. McKinney, I haven't heard of exceptions. I have heard of many bills put in place by the House of Representatives, but they are stuck in
They're still
transition to the Senate, which is where the problem has been for several years.
Okay.
Mike Clampett helped us to get in on one of those House bills,
I knew.
and it's stuck.
Oh,
I haven't heard any conversation about the Senate moving any of those right now.
oh, okay.
Now, there may be some school boards who have decided to go rogue. And if that's a direction that you want to go, I love being a rebel. But what I am recommending, based on the law and what I know today, is that we adopt the calendar waiver for 22-23 that will start us on August the 22nd. and make our last school day somewhere around June the 9th of 2023.
Is it necessary to do that this early?
If I don't have this turned in by August the 13th, they won't let us turn it in. You can approve this, and then we can start a movement to try and get the Senate to move along with us, if you want to. I think that our Senate representative, Kevin Corbin, will go with us in a flash.
That's about the only choice we have, isn't it?
Any other thoughts or comments?
So that'll be an action item.
Yes, it will. Those are all of the discussion items that I have on the agenda, sir.
All right. Anything else anybody got? Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
I move the Swain County Board of Education go into closed session for the purpose of discussing information that is privileged, confidential, and not a public record under North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11.
Do I have a second? to that?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, by show of hands. All right, we'll be back shortly. All right, I'll call us back to order. Let's go to action items. The first item we're going to look at is COVID and the school response.
We're currently, as a school system, with masks optional. We've heard information tonight from the health department that our numbers are increasing. It might be, I believe it would be good for us to look at changing the wording on that. And in my opinion, the only way that we can, not the only way, but a primary way that we can protect ourselves, our students, our staff, and keep classrooms open. I'm really concerned about the fact that if we aren't masked, our students can be exposed very quickly and close a classroom because of the tracing concerns, particularly with all students in the classroom. So I would be in support of requiring masks to be worn by all of our students at all of our campuses from pre-K through the high school. However, that move needs to be taken by you as a direct action.
You want to have a motion, and then we'll go through the motion and have any discussion that you want if you got a motion.
Based on all the information that we've been given from the health department, our local health department, from looking at the national, the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the North Carolina chapter of that as well, I make the motion that we return to school at this point with everyone wearing masks, including the pre-K, during, in the buildings at all times. I think our number one goal is to keep the students and teachers and staff well, and the families in the community, and to keep the students in the classrooms and in-person learning. I think that what we've experienced, as well as what all the child health professionals at this point know, that in-person education is best for the children's health. And that's my reason for making that motion.
Okay. Do you have a second to that?
I'll second that.
Motion is second. Any discussion?
If we might, on that, to clarify, I believe what we've discussed is to clarify that for athletic events, participation in the event itself while on the competition floor or field would not require a mask. That would still remain optional, but once you leave the playing field or court, the mask must be worn in accordance with the motion that Ms. Carpenter just made by everyone involved, including faculty, staff, players, and those who are acting as a coach in that athletic event, whether they are faculty or staff of Swain County Schools.
Mr. White, I'm not an expert on Robert's rules. Did we have a second on that motion?
He made
We
the
did.
second.
We made a second on the motion to require the masks while in school.
Okay. Are you adding what you just said as an amendment to the motion? Or is that just instructive?
Yes, no, that would be an amendment to the motion, now that I think about it, because that would require an enforceability mechanism by the school.
Okay.
And if I'm gonna do that, then yes, it would be an amendment to the original motion.
As an amendment, my understanding is that Ms. Carpenter and Did you second that?
I
You
did.
second that? Ms. Carpenter would need to agree to that. That's my understanding.
I would agree to that. Just to clarify too, I think there's a question as to whether staff would need to wear a mask, and that, my motion was that everyone basically in the school building would wear a mask,
Okay.
including staff, teachers, students.
Okay.
Unless there's a medical reason.
And that's provided in the guidelines with the Strong Schools Toolkit. Those are already in place.
And I guess I would add on, I mean, this is something that you clearly don't want to be, we don't want it to be a permanent thing, we don't want it to be seen as that. So I would like to be able to, for us to come back and revisit this. I'm gonna say the October meeting, but in the event, according to health officials and our health director, if things get better, maybe we can revisit it at an earlier point in time. But I think putting it out there for at least that period of time, that will give us time to see what's happening in our community.
Did you say September, October?
October, but can be revisited earlier if the conditions improve.
Well, I believe we said last time even that we would revisit this as often as possible based on the reports we get, and we can change it when that occurs. My big concern is, number one, of course, obviously students and staff, but especially the reports you're getting from younger students.
Yes.
And the sickness and the illnesses that they're having. So that's obviously your biggest. The other concern is, one, last year we went to remote. We don't have that capability right now.
No.
And so if we should close schools, we'd close schools. And all it takes is one classroom to break out in a large number, and you may end up closing school, because you lose 2 or 3 or 4 teachers.
Mm-hmm.
That can affect an entire school population as far as being able to teach school. And it would probably not be that. So I think we err on the side of caution, and then we revisit it, and as soon as we feel comfortable with the reports we're getting, that we leave it. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody, I hate wearing one, but I do. So I don't think we have any other choice, given the reports we're getting and the seriousness of the situation.
I want to make sure that the motion's clear, that's got the additions on it. So do you want to repeat it? So that we-
I would
Sir?
prefer that it be in your words. I think that I have the gist of it, and I can kind of share back with you what you've said,
Okay.
if you want me to. Another thought and concern is, are you as a group comfortable if we move in this direction with allowing teachers the discretion to have mask breaks in the classroom?
No, I would agree with that. Or especially take them outside and let them get some air. And anything they can do to make it easier on them, I perfectly, I would agree. I would encourage that.
Do you want to give any additional guidance for mask wearing outdoors? Currently, the toolkit really doesn't give any instruction with that. Now, Allison said a little while ago that the 6-foot social distancing requirement is still in place in outdoors. Okay? Do you want to give any additional guidance in your work in that?
I mean, I would want to follow CDC recommendations and as outlined by our health director.
Mark, if I may,
Please.
I would encourage the 6 foot if possible outside. That way the kids would not have to wear masks. I think that would be very reasonable if they could contain as much distance. Because the kids aren't anywhere, as well as the staff.
You're comfortable with mask breaks?
Oh, very much, yes.
Okay.
Mark, we, once we vote on this, if we vote one way or the other on it, we probably also need to come up with maybe some kind of a motion for some guidance with athletics. Would you agree, separate from this?
Well, Cody put some guidance in as an amendment that Kim has accepted.
Okay.
And when I restate this, anyone has the opportunity to offer an amendment to the motion as well before it's voted
So
on,
we're
my
gonna take that as an
understanding.
amendment.
Well, we also got to look at, you know, you said on campus, indoors, volleyball games, football games, the fans, what's expected. I mean, we've got to clarify that.
And that's what I was gonna bring up as a point of clarification. After we get the base of the motion and the second and everything back in there, then we can make a point of clarification for
Okay.
the fans and the spectators in these sports and what we plan to do with that. Because I don't think that that's necessarily part of a motion because of a lack of enforceability, but I think we can clarify that on the record. I just want to get this concrete first.
And we don't have to add anything to the motion concerning transportation, school transportation, because that's already a
Already
federal
law, yeah.
mandate for all practical purposes.
Yeah.
Okay? So, Ms. Carpenter, all students, staff, employees will wear masks inside buildings, including pre-K students, with appropriate mask breaks as allowed by their instructors. For athletics, when our athletes are involved in competition, playing, we'll need to find the right wording for that, okay? They are allowed to not wear a mask. However, when they come out of the field of play, the court, they are to remask, correct?
Correct.
Anyone on the sidelines is expected to wear a mask as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay? We will revisit this as often as needed, but as specially noted in October, okay? We will follow the recommendations from Health and Human Services in all other areas, including transportation. And outside, mask may be removed with 6-foot distance expectations. Does that sound good to you?
I think it does.
Does that sound good? Visitors. Well, we said everyone in the building, so that would include our visitors. Yes. Okay? Are we good? Okay?
I mean, I guess I would ask some of the principals if they need additional, I don't know what happens at their buildings when visitors come in, so if there's an additional protections that need to be in there so we can address all that. It's just visitors, okay?
Does it need to be temperature checks of our visitors?
We're not doing health screenings unless the board decides that we need to. And actually, the Strong Schools Toolkit recommends that screenings not be accomplished.
Outdoor athletic events, football games, cross-country, spectators.
We're going to make a statement about that after this motion is complete. Did I hear you say that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay. Principals, anything else?
Mass gatherings, open house.
Mass gatherings. What does the toolkit say about that? That's a good point, Amanda.
Think it's going to just be social distancing,
So that would fall back to inside the building, which has already been stated. Masks are expected for all visitors. Does not, I don't hear this prohibiting gathering together of groups for open house or anything else.
Just wear a mask.
No, it's a mask.
Yeah,
Okay.
wear a mask.
Okay. Anything else, Brandon? No. I think that covers it for now. If we,
That's my motion,
okay,
as
All right.
amended by Mr. White.
okay.
All right, we'll go for a motion. All in favor by a show of hands? All right, that's four. All, any opposed? So it's carries 4-0. All right, on athletics, that's not in here, but let's talk about it in a minute. You know, go ahead and make your reports on that.
Yeah, as to the comment and addition for spectators and fans, it is recommended that those wear a mask, but it's not going to be mandated. That's, the enforceability of that is very difficult, and we don't want to put anybody in that situation. Again, if you choose, we want to make this very clear, if you choose to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't wish to, as you're not required if you're a spectator, and we will try to get in line of making announcements, signs. Please keep in mind proper hygiene, hand washing, social distancing if possible, sitting in your same familial groups. Just keep those things in mind, but that's not something that I believe that we're going to require at this time for spectators.
Now, do you feel, Mr. White, that needs to be in the form of a motion or just as a general statement?
I think as a general statement, because it doesn't require an enforcement action by the board or the school employees.
Okay.
So I think that that's just a general informative statement and a clarifying statement on the motion we just did, because it is gatherings inside a building. They are visitors, but it's not it's an exception to our rule in the fact of athletic events, for specifically athletic events and athletic events only.
Okay, and that would include then a concern about volleyball or basketball whenever we get to those places?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
If we need to revisit it later in the form of a motion of some kind, we can do that, but as of right now.
And I guess that includes staff at a ball game. Just, you know, if they're staff, they're expected to wear it at school, but if they're attending a ball game, spectating,
That's a good point.
they're still not, I mean, that should be optional, right?
So I would assume that as a staff member, if they are performing the duties of a staff member at a ball game, that they'll be expected to wear a mask. If they are assuming the position of a spectator, they would not. But it would be highly recommended. That's the way I hear that. Now, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths.
That is correct.
Okay. Did that clarify that well? Okay.
Now, I think even at football games, even though it's outside, that we have Mr. Thomas continually through the intercom recommend spacing, recommend that everyone have a mask on. You know, it's not about them, it's about those kids on the field. Those kids, they're gonna be walking around everywhere. So it's not just about us, it's about them. The same thing with volleyball, and those would be recommended, and we put signs up saying we'd like for you to wear a mask. But our concern is that we found in football games last spring, it was hard to enforce.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay, that would move us past that action unless anyone feels that we need to address anything else that has to do with COVID. I would recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve the minutes of the July 19th, 2021 open session meeting and the July 19th, 2021 closed session meeting. You should have those minutes in your documentation.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
To get to our policies, I am going to recommend that the board suspend the expectations of policy 2420 only for the approval of policies 6140, 6210, 6220, and 6230, since this is our first opportunity to see those as a group. So this recommendation is only to suspend that policy 2420 for this action.
For those four.
Yes, for those four.
We have a motion
So moved.
Second.
and a second. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? All right, motion is carried.
And with that suspension of the policy for those four recommended policies, I would add those to the list that you have on your agenda, and I can read every number if you want me to, but it's going to be a train track of numbers, okay? I would recommend the Swain County Board of Education approve all of the policies as they are listed in your agenda.
Motion.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion is carried.
One of the opportunities that we have at the high school now, because we have added square footage, is to improve our video surveillance opportunity. We have had a good system in the older parts of the building there for a number of years, but they're becoming outdated pretty quickly, to the point where it's difficult to find parts. And so we have had a proposal come to us from an organization that will allow us to replace all of the cameras at the high school and add additional cameras in high-need areas. And the other benefit of this is that all of the footage will be stored in the cloud, and it is extremely high resolution with an enormous search capability. For example, if we wanted to find everywhere that Mr. McKinney had been in the building today, we could program in that we want to find every record in the video system for the man who has on this color shirt. And it will identify everywhere that he's been. It also has the capability to be very high resolution so that you can, it's 4K, so that you can expand the camera view and actually see the color of the whiskers on their chin. It's that advanced. It is not going to be cheap, though. You have the recommendation for the price. I believe it's in the neighborhood of $90,000. The best way for us to achieve this is to lease the equipment with the, I believe it's a lease to own, correct? And that lease would be over 5 years. I believe that this is an excellent opportunity for our high school, and every camera that we take out of the high school, we can reuse in our middle school and elementary systems so that we now have more capability there as well, which is needed. There are places where we're blind at night, and we need to fix that on our campuses. So my recommendation is that you approve the lease for the camera system. Now, please know that the next thing that we'll have to do is to send that to our attorneys and make sure that the lease meets their expectations. And I also need to tell you that this lease before taxes is about $86,000. But after taxes, it goes to $90,000. And that is a price break that in our board policies we are required to pay attention to for formal bids. So if our attorneys come back and say, because the tax has caused us to go over the $90,000 limit, you will have to have formal bids, we'll have to back up and start again. So please understand that, okay? I still recommend that we go ahead and move forward with this particular lease for these cameras, pending direction from our attorneys. You have questions?
What's the time frame for installing?
I don't have the answer to that. Do y'all know? I don't know.
Installation will be done by our staff, for our tech department, so it'll just be a matter of obtaining the equipment and they'll install.
I don't think it'll be done in a month. Do you want me to call Karen and find out?
No. you're
Be
good.
happy to.
No, it's good.
Okay. Other questions or thoughts? Well, you have my recommendation
I'll
on
make
that.
that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? All in favor by show of hands? All right, motion's carried.
Dr. Sutton brought to you a mental health plan. Was it the last meeting? July's meeting, yes. That was mandated by law, and since that time, he's found out that it doesn't just have to be presented to the board. There's been some change in language, and it has to be approved by the board. So, Dr. Sutton, would you just give us an elevator explanation of the mental health plan? Please.
Please. Bring it a little closer if you need to, so.
SHIELD Policy 003 is a school mental health policy that requires schools to create a mental health improvement plan, and also requires 6 hours of initial training in 6 areas: student mental health, student drug use, sex trafficking, sexual abuse. Oh, I'm not going to think of all 6 of them off the top of my head, but requires training in those areas. And so I presented our plan to you, and it also requires us to have a suicide prevention protocol. So what are our steps if a teacher worries about a student, or if the guidance counselor suspects that the student may be considering suicide or harming themselves? And we use the mobile crisis to make we don't have staff that will make the call, so we refer to mobile crisis. And they decide what level of support the student needs beyond us. So I presented that plan, that overview. Ms. Sneed presented our protocol. We have purchased Vector training, and actually the training documents went out today to begin our training. After this year, on even number years, so for next year, it'll be 22-23 school year, it will require 2 hours of sex trafficking and child sexual abuse training, and then the other years requires 2 hours of just student mental health, which can be anything. And what had happened is, when we had our meeting in July, a lot of counties were behind and were not able to get board approval. So what they told us was just present to your boards. And what we took it away was that it did not. What they did is extended the approval until September 15th. And several of us, we had a meeting earlier this week, end of last week, and they said, no, what we meant to tell you is that you had an extension on board approval. Any questions about that plan? I know it's been some time ago that we went over that, but.
So, Mr. McKinney, I would recommend that the Swain County Board of Education approve now the school mental health plan as it has been presented to you.
Okay, do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any comment or question? All in favor by a show of hands? All right, motion's carried.
That takes us past those particular items and moves us into personnel. And so I would recommend that the Swain County Board of Education accept the resignation of Eric Cantrell as teacher at Swain East Elementary effective August 1st, 2021.
Make that motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by a show of hands?
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education accept the resignation of Jeff Helpman as New Century Scholar Coordinator at the high school effective August 4, 2021.
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? All right, motion carried.
You have someone who was going to be recommended to you to work at the middle school immediately after this on the agenda. I won't call her name out because this is not an attempt to embarrass or to demean her in any way. But this young lady was intending to come to Swain County to work, and she couldn't find housing. And this is not the first time that we've lost the opportunity to employ someone because they couldn't find housing. That's a concern. And I think that as a school system and as a board, we need to look at a way or ways to help staff with housing somehow. I don't know how. Or to have conversations with commissioners, legislators, whomever, so that we can maybe reduce the impact that a lack of affordable housing for young adults is bringing to Swain County. But I want to bring that to your attention because that's a growing concern for us. Okay.
We lost a psychologist last year, a school
Yes.
psychologist, because they couldn't find housing.
That's right. And I don't mean that to be demeaning to anyone. That's just
Right.
the state of affairs where we are right now. I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Timothy Chase Cochran as a custodian at Swain West Elementary pending his background check.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? All right, motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Chris McMahon as custodian at Swain West Elementary pending his background check.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion's carried.
I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Anna Rowland from a 10-month social worker to a 12-month social worker effective August 4th, 2021.
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor by show of hands? Motion carried.
We have two additional that were added today. I recommend the Swain County Board of Education renew the employment of Matthew Hewitt for 1 year with an effective start date of August 9, 2021.
Make that motion.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor by show of hands? Motion carried.
And my last recommendation for personnel is I recommend the Swain County Board of Education employ Dakota Mancuso as a social studies teacher at Swain Middle School effective August 9, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor by show of hands? Motion carried.
Mr. McKinney, those are all of the personnel items that I have. You'll see that there are a number of events for your recognition and to put on your calendar. Some of those are happening now. Our beginning of the year, I call it convocation, but it's really not. It's just our broadcast now because we're not going to gather. We'll be in the morning at 8:30. It'll be on the Maroon Devil Network if anybody wants to watch that. We're expecting you to be there, Mr. McKinney.
What time was that?
8:30. We thought you might want to say some nice words to our staff since they're working awfully hard right now.
Can I come in with pajamas?
Yes.
All right.
September 3rd, we are at this point scheduling an open house and dedication for the Maroon Strong Performance Center up at the Memorial Stadium. On the 12th, which is Thursday, there is a vaccine clinic between the hours of 1 and 3 p.m. at the middle school. It will be held at the backside of the media center. And we need for people to sign up with Blue Ridge Health if they are interested in receiving the Pfizer vaccine. And that is available for students as well from 12 to 18 years old. So call Blue Ridge Health if you're interested. Do we still need to have an August 23rd special call meeting? We had said, you had said we're going to meet every 2 weeks. Is that still necessary?
Do we need to meet the 23rd? I'm not sure it's necessary unless you get information that's contrary to what we're getting right now. Unless there's something else comes up and concerning any item.
Okay, so we'll move that off of the calendar, and if there was a need, we'll be in touch with you, okay?
Right.
There are a host of transfers that you'll notice there on your page. I'm not going to go through all of those. Just know that these transfers also have to do with the fact that we have lost some staff. And we're just trying to fill slots right now. And I thank our team in HR for putting this together. Tommy works very hard, and Lavonda, who is his right hand, is amazing. I believe that's all of the information I have, Mr. McKinney, unless there's anything else that you want to take care of.
No, I'm just reminded again of, when you see the number of transfers and all, and the staff, we continually, we hire a custodian a month, and we lose one about a month. That we have got to address that at some point. I almost feel like we're General Dollar, or Family Dollar, what is it over here?
Dollar
Dollar General, I'll get it right in a minute. And some of those, they can't keep employees because we don't pay anything. We can't keep these employees because we're not paying them. They can go to the casino right now and start out at any job up there at $15 an hour. And then they go to, I don't understand Walmart's going toward that direction, and they can't get employed. So we're gonna have to keep up with a payment schedule, or we're gonna be in deep trouble. I mean, our kids have gotta go to clean buildings. You can't clean buildings if you don't have staff to do it.
Now, Ms. Treadway and I are looking at some adjustments on that. We're waiting to see what our House and Senate puts into place. I know that the House is rolling out its budget a little bit at a time this week. I had a conversation with Mike Clampett today, and he said that they're working on pieces, so we need to watch that. Once that's complete, Ms. Treadway and I will come together and decide if there's anything more that we need to do to support those positions. But I agree with you 100%.
Is
We
that
need to
bill
do
still in
something.
the House for 13?
Which one?
There was one bill in there for 13. There was one bill
Yes,
for
that's
13.
on the Senate side. That's
That's
their
on the Senate.
budget, okay?
And there was one for 15, some in there too.
I don't know about that one. I believe that the Senate has pushed to 13.
It's
And
Senate-
right now, they're waiting on the House to come up with theirs, and then they'll take that to conference from that point. And I know that the governor wants to take it higher than that, so they'll have to hopefully come to a conclusion.
Can I bring up one thing? I just got a message from someone that works in a lunchroom, I believe. And it says, what about kids in the lunchroom not going to be possible with 6-foot mandate in effect? Not enough room. Or do we continue to feed in classroom?
I've had a conversation with every principal except for Tricia about that today, and Trish lives under a little bit of a different surrounding because they're already feeding in classrooms. We are looking at how to accommodate that and probably not have all of the students in the lunchrooms at the same time. The principals are looking at how to accomplish that. So to whoever that is, that was at the top of our list before we came in today.
I understand, I think the high school was real creative in that last year, weren't you? You still want to do something similar? Okay.
It's,
You're kidding.
no, they're at 591.
How many?
591?
Yeah.
Social distance with a mask off during lunch, we're gonna have to be beyond creative.
It's going to be difficult at the high school because of space.
you're doing too good a job, we're going down in some other numbers. Wow.
I've not looked at the CDC recommendations about that as far as removing masks when eating or whatever. I'll have to look at that and see what that says, and I think our
Well, and
health
what,
department staff.
I believe what the, whoever that is that sent that to you, what they're assuming is that all of the students will be unmasked to eat, and they would. But there has to be an allowance for eating. But that may push to a 6-foot social distance expectation. I'll be very frank, it's going to be difficult in any of our buildings with all of our students to have a 6-foot social distance unless we're outside. What were you saying, Brandon?
It's only 3 foot between students.
Okay, even without masks?
It's just 3 foot. And 6 foot between adults and adults and students.
Okay.
Does that make that easier for high school and everywhere? Or
It'll be easier for the high school. They'll have to spread just a little bit. I don't know how they'll do it. Sonia's a master of that. I've never seen anybody plan like she does. At the elementary schools, it's still going to be difficult. In the middle school, it's still going to be difficult for us to have 3 feet if students are facing each other across tables. But we'll work on that. Okay? I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult. It's just a difficult.
I believe that you will see
Situation.
students, some students eating in their classrooms.
That's why we're hoping to look at it again soon. So
Yes.
hopefully that will.
Anything else?
We have the marks.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we forgot one big item here.
I would.
Glad you reminded me of that. We have one last item, and I'll take a motion for that to approve the superintendent's contract for an additional 2 years, past the next 2 years, so give him a 5-year or 4-year contract.
Motion.
All right, we have a second to that?
Second.
All those in favor by a show of hands? That motion is carried, and we're through. One of the things that COVID's done to us again too is, we hoped we'd go to the faculty meetings and be able to express our appreciation to the staff. This is stressful. You would hear a lot on how nurses are stressed out. Our teachers are, and our staff and all of our staff is stressed out in what they have to do with. It's not, it's beyond normal. And I am so appreciative of the job they do and how well they take care of our kids. And I want them to know that, and I'd like to tell them that before I can look them in the eye, but I can't do it. And we'd planned on doing that, but it seemed like something else changes our plans. So.
You can tell them that by looking in the camera lens in the morning.
Where is it? I don't even know where it is.
We're going, that's,
In the morning?
we'll be at the Arts Center waiting on you.
Is it gonna be from the Art Center?
It'll be from the Arts Center, yes.
Okay.
Just those who are presenting. And can I have just one moment of privilege?
Yes.
Our Cherokee brothers and sisters lost an outstanding young man, and is causing a lot of grief in a lot of people's hearts. And so we extend our condolences to the family of Anthony Juanita. I have not heard a negative thing about him.
Right.
And so we're sad for that loss, and we grieve along with them today.
I would agree. Anybody got anything else? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
And a second, and all those in agreement, we'll stand up and adjourn.
Hey, did you send us a schedule? I sent you an email that night, I said 4.